As Donald Trump plots a return to the White House in 2024 in schemes of vengeance against the deep state and Democrats, there have been calls back and forth about the alleged weaponization of the Department of Justice by Republicans and Democrats. But a former Trump official, the Attorney General, as a matter of fact, under Trump, who led his Department of Justice, actually said Trump wants to weaponize the Department of Justice, not Biden. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, so this channel, Pondering Politics, we have no love for William Barr, okay? This man is hyper-conservative in the extreme. He served as Attorney General under Donald Trump and under George H.W. Bush back in the late 80s, early 90s. This man, now listen, Barr is smart, and Barr is conservative in philosophy. He is not a superficial thinker. He is a brilliant litigator. He's a brilliant attorney. He is respected, I think, even in certain ways by Democrats as well, not because of his ethics per se, but because, again, he's not stupid, okay? And he's even like a peddler of a notion we've talked about before on the channel, like unitary executive theory. He is a proponent of essentially an executive so strong that there are no checks and balances on the executive short of impeachment. He believes that the president basically should have absolute, total, unencumbered control of the executive branch, and that the judicial branch and Congress shouldn't be in a position to kind of check the president, basically making the president effectively as close to a dictator as you can possibly be. Now, of course, he wants that under a Republican president, not a Democratic president. But the bottom line is, I mean, his Republican and conservative bona fides, his credentials in both these respects, is beyond question. Anybody who questions Bill Barr's loyalty to the Republican Party and to conservatism at large is either an idiot or a liar, one of the two. There is no third option, okay? Now, the reason I'm bringing all that up is he's obviously been conducting interviews all the time, especially since he left office, because he has slowly become an increasingly outspoken critic of his former boss, Donald Trump. And he did an interview with Neil Cavuto on the Fox Propaganda Network, and this one comment, and I watched the interview, kind of slipped under the radar, and I didn't see it. It didn't really register with me until earlier today, and I feel like it's important to point out because it's a remarkable admission by a man who loyally served Donald Trump, eagerly served Donald Trump, and who has also not ruled out voting for him again in 2024. But this is what Bill Barr has to say.
So I'm just wondering, do you fear an attorney general in a future Trump administration who would be?
Yes. One of the things I'll have to weigh if I'm confronted with Trump versus Biden is my concern of the kinds of people he would have about him. And he was always about tit for tat. You know, it's funny, Republicans are complaining about weaponization of the department, and I think it's a fair thing to pursue. But Trump's made it clear he wants to weaponize the Department of Justice.
Is that what you think his 4 years would be?
That would be my concern. Among many.
That would be my concern among many, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice. But also, by the way, I still might vote for him. That's how partisan Bill Barr is. That is how loyal this man is to the Republican Party and the conservative movement. That basically, while saying, and not even saying anything like that about President Biden, it's not like he's saying nor offering proof that I think Joe Biden would be a tyrant if he could be. He's saying Donald Trump could be and would want to be a tyrant and has, desires to weaponize the justice system against his enemies. But I still might vote for him because I'm such a conservative and I'm such a Republican, okay? So again, just an instant refutation of the idea that Bill Barr is insufficiently loyal to the GOP and to the right. And yet, he's saying Donald Trump will try to weaponize the Department of Justice. Now again, the irony here, or the additional irony, is that people were pointing that out, that Trump already did do that during his first 4 years, when at least for half of those, like 2 of those 4 years, Bill Barr was the Attorney General. We have plenty of evidence to indicate that Bill Barr was weaponizing the Justice Department on Trump's behalf against his political enemies and trying to protect him accordingly, okay, as we've discussed in previous videos. But so setting that aside, setting that willful blindness aside, what that means is a hyper-partisan attorney general who believes in basically the executive being an effective dictator and who weaponized the Justice Department on behalf of that wannabe dictator, thinks that if that wannabe dictator got a second shot, he would be so unhinged, so deranged, so tyrannical, so authoritarian, that even this guy who worked for him and tried to affect that agenda would be like, yeah, that's It seems like a bit too far for me. Now, I know that that's probably not going to persuade a lot of people who are ride or die Trumpers come hell or high water, but it is important to note. And you need to have this in your back pocket when you're dealing with MAGA supporters or Republicans who are at least a little bit on the fence about Trump. This, I think, in the hands of the right person with the right combination of words, could be instructive and persuasive. Like, guys, listen, you know what Bill Barr did for him. And if you don't know or if you don't remember, here's a refresher. This is how loyally Bill Barr served Donald Trump. X, Y, and Z. And we've covered it in previous videos. And even he's saying this now. And he's not even saying it about Biden. And he's also saying that despite this, he still may end up voting for Trump. But this is how deranged Trump is to even somebody like Bill Barr. So again, hopefully this will start to change hearts and minds, but we'll see.